Hey guys, what's up? My name is Dom. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new to my channel, I typically make bookish content, movie content, and anything else in between because I like to do whatever I want on this channel, and tonight is going to be bookish content. For today's video, we are going to go over the worst books I read in 2023. Last time I went over the best books. I'll link that up above. But if you didn't watch that video, I did read 92 books in 2023, which is absolutely insane. I've never done that in a single year before. And despite having a great reading year, there were still some books that I absolutely hated. So I chose 5. I chose my bottom 5, and we're gonna go over them in today's video. So let's get started. I'm gonna go from the best of these 5 to the absolute worst book I read in 2023. So at number 5, at 2.5 stars, we have The Girl in the Locked Room, A Ghost Story by Mary Downing Hahn. This is about a girl who discovers a ghost in the locked room of the house she just moved into. This is kind of just a strange book, the way this plot line ended up working out. I mean, first of all, I did have to kind of regress my mind a bit because this is obviously not for my age group. This is for like 10-year-olds. But that being said, I don't think children's books are absolved from criticism, and I have a lot for this one. It started off very strong. Like it felt like a good, eerie horror story that I would have loved as a kid. But then the plot line just devolved into something I absolutely was not here for. My main issue with this book is that you can tell exactly at which point in the story the author backed herself into a corner and didn't know how to solve the problem. The plan that these characters came up with just seemed way too convoluted for their age. The characters in these books are fairly young. I think they're between like 10, I think they're about 10 years old. And when reading this, I was like, there's no way a 10-year-old would be able to think of this and even know what that is. And not only that, but the plan itself wasn't described well. Like, it kind of just happened. So it felt like a cop-out on the writer's part. And that just made me so disinterested in what ended up happening to these characters that by the end of it, I just absolutely was not impressed. Hence why it's number 5 on this list. At number 4, we have Tokyo Ghoul Pass by Shin Towada. So Tokyo Ghoul is a manga series by Sui Ishida that's highly inspired by the Metamorphosis by Franz Kafka. And it's about a boy named Ken Kaneki who lives in a universe where ghouls run amok. They can disguise themselves as humans, however, humans are afraid of them because their diet is humans. One day, Kaneki gets an organ transplant and he becomes half ghoul and half human. And now that he can understand both sides, he wants to live in a world where these species can coexist with one another. There are 4 light novels written by Shin Towada. I only read 3 because I don't think the 4th one was translated into English, and this is the 3rd one. The light novels are just collections of short stories, and this one specifically, all the short stories take place before Kaneki was turned into a ghoul. The other light novels I gave between 3 to 3.5 stars. This one I only gave 2.5 stars. My biggest gripe with all 3, actually, it was just particularly bad in this one, is the whole show don't tell issue. Like, we love when authors show don't tell. However, in this book, there was a lot of telling that took me out of the story. My specific issue with the telling is that the narration would say something, but then it would just get repeated in the character's thoughts. And it's like, okay, like, thanks, I got that, because I just read the sentence before that. And the author also just leaves no room for interpretation. Like, I do believe in order to create a great book, you do need a healthy balance of being explicit, but also letting readers read between the lines at times. You never, ever, ever, ever have to read between the lines here. You are hit over the head with what the author is trying to tell you. That issue is more forgivable in the other light novels. However, it wasn't in this one simply because I didn't like any of the, no, that's a lie. I liked one story, the rest I absolutely hated. I just thought they were boring, basically. One thing I was really disappointed with this one was that the stories weren't really connected to one another. In the other light novels, the stories are connected in some way, like due to Easter eggs or whatever. And even in the second one, you actually, like the first one, you could read the stories out of order and be fine. But the second one you can't because it actually is one cohesive story in a way. This one just didn't have any connections at all. So I was very disappointed in that regard, especially because I thought that's what made these light novels. That's what I thought made them so special. And then it's disappointing because I love Tokyo Ghoul. Like, I've read that in 2020 and I'm still obsessed with it to this day. And here's an installment that I just don't like. So it's number 4 on the list due to my disappointment. At number 3, we have a nonfiction book that I gave 2 stars to, and that is White Trash, The 400-Year Untold History of Class in America by Nancy Eisenberg. This is just as the title suggests. This whole book is just about history of class, specifically class between white people here in America. It discusses terms such as scallywag, Democrat, Republican, white trash, trailer trash, where all of those things came from. The reason it made my bottom 3 is just because that sounds interesting. She could have been fun with it. However, this book was so fucking boring. This felt like a high school history textbook, which I absolutely hated back when I was in high school. And I was listening to this on audiobook, and the writing was just so grating and dry that I was falling asleep listening to the audiobook, which is hilarious because I would listen to it at work, so I was falling asleep on the job. The only good thing I have to say about this book is that it somewhat helped me understand terms used in Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell, because I was reading that at the same time, and somewhat understand the class relations in that story. But other than that, like, this was so fucking boring. There are so many better history books out there. Don't read this. Now, if you watch my best books of 2023 video, you will see that I have a Stephen Graham Jones book as number 2 on that list. And unfortunately, he's number 2 on this list as well. At number 2, at 1 out of 5 stars, we have Night of the Mannequins by Stephen Graham Jones. This is about a boy who pulls a prank with his friends that goes wrong. He thinks a mannequin comes to life and is killing off his friends. People on Goodreads were praising this book, and let me tell you, I don't know what fucking book they read because I thought this book was garbage. The elements of foreshadowing and just hints in general in this book were just so obvious that I figured out the plot twist right away, almost immediately. Like, as soon as the issue happens, I just knew what was going on, even before any of the hints of foreshadowing were mentioned. Like, I knew exactly where the story was going, and it went in the exact direction, almost plot by plot point, that I figured it would go. And therefore, knowing the truth did not make the story engaging. I didn't care to read about the downfall of this character's mental state. And because of all that, this wasn't the spooky and eerie book that was advertised to me. People were saying, if you like The Only Good Indians, you'd like this. But no, The Only Good Indians is number 2 on the best books list. This is number 2 on the worst book list. And it had such a corny ending, and I hate corny endings outside of like Christmas shit, which this is definitely not. And it feels like a horror story I've come across multiple times before. There's nothing new and original about this to me, hence why aggravated I got. Apparently I could hear the aggravation in my voice talking about this. So 1 out of 5 stars. Oh look, here comes Carmine. Hi. Say hello to the people. No, you're sitting on my books. Get off. Oh. Despite all my grievances about the last book, that is not number 1 on the list. At number 1, at 1 out of 5 stars, the worst book I read in 2023 was Becoming Free Indeed, My Story of Disentangling Faith from Fear by Ginger Duggar Vuolo. Ginger Duggar was one of 19 children on the TLC show 19 Kids and Counting. Her family was part of the IBLP Christian fundamentalist cult run by Bill Gothard. In this book, and there's a bunch of crimes surrounding that cult. You can guess what kind of crimes. In this book, she discusses leaving that cult once she met her husband, Jeremy Vuolo, and joining the Grace Community Church. It's run by John MacArthur, which is important for one of my later criticisms of this book. Can you back up, dude? You're in my way. The topic was admittedly interesting to me because this whole book is about how she left a cult but still believes in Jesus, which I feel like is something we don't see often, because often when I read about people leaving cults, they no longer believe in a higher being. They become atheists. So I was like, okay, cool. This is something new. Let's pick up the book. However, this book made number 1 on my list because I think this book is a fucking crock of shit for a multitude of reasons. First of all, this whole book is how she is criticizing Bill Gothard's religion. She is criticizing a man-made religion, which, fair, I can agree with that on the surface. I have a lot of gripes with man-made religion. I just think it's hypocritical of her to be like, oh, I'm leaving this man-made religion because I believe in the Bible now, because that's not what's happening. She left Bill Gothard's church and goes to MacArthur's church, which is like literally the same concept. It's just that women can wear pants. And quite frankly, they have a lot of the same crimes going on behind the scenes. Like, there's a bunch of sexual assault cases with this church right now. And my issue with that is Ginger being hypocritical, or is she just not seeing the irony of what she's saying? Another reason I think this book is a crock of shit is because I found it to be insulting. At one point, Ginger explicitly says, you're not living a meaningful life if you don't have religion. And it's like, what gives you the right to decide what a meaningful life is? Like, if believing in God gives her a meaningful life, that's her prerogative. Good for you, but you don't get to tell other people what a meaningful life is. Some people found a lot of joy once they left their Christian churches. I'm one of them. I used to be part of the Catholic Church. I said peace out, and my life has gotten significantly better once I finally admitted to myself I wanted nothing to do with them. She's not alone in saying this. Like, I've grown up hearing this a lot, but it's like, I don't understand when people say that, like, how do they truly think that's going to bring people closer to their God? Reason number 3 for absolutely hating this book is that I'm not a fan of the messaging. The messaging to this book to me is very hypocritical, because the whole book is about how she's becoming free indeed. She's not following a man anymore. She supposedly just follows the Bible now, but you know, I went over that. We're gonna not go over that again. But the reason I find this to be hypocritical is because at one point she claims that she can't think for herself, so she wants someone else to think for her. In her case, she wants God to think for her. And she goes on to say something like unfettered freedom actually causes more bondage, whatever the fuck that means. And it's like the whole book is called Becoming Free Indeed. But if you can't think for yourself and unfettered freedom causes less freedom, then how are you free? You know what I'm saying? That just, like, that makes no sense to me. And honestly, the whole paragraph about how she can't think for herself, that was honestly one of the saddest things I've ever read a person say about themselves. And keeping on topic with the messaging, this is more so of a nitpick because I know this can be controversial. And it's also not explicitly talked about in the book, but it does drive me crazy that, like, she's very much a God over therapy type of person, which I think could be very detrimental. In the beginning of the book, she talks about how, like, if she didn't read the Bible, she was afraid, like, a car would run over her, lightning would strike down. If she didn't do something for God, something bad was going to happen. As someone with OCD, and specifically religious OCD, I very much believe Ginger has a textbook case of it. Because some of the things she would talk about, it wasn't just benign anxiety, like it was just straight up obsessive compulsive disorder, which if you don't get help for, it could be extremely debilitating. I still remember the year or two of my life where it took over and I could not function. But no, she doesn't call it that, and she probably never will as long as she's under this church. She just called it an overactive conscious. When it comes to, like, mental health and all that, I just think that's such a dangerous mindset. I think she would be more free if she just came to terms with the fact that she has these thoughts and she needs help. But that's just me. And then the fourth and final reason I think this book is stupid, a crock of shit, garbage, belongs in the trash, is that the fact that it's a ghostwriter, which mostly sometimes, because I've read a lot of memoirs, autobiographies, whatever, that had ghostwriters, and it was okay. And, you know, granted, Ginger does thank him, which I think is actually respectable. I'd never really seen that before. But it was the way this ghostwriter handled her book. Ginger herself has said this is not going to be an autobiography, so I knew that going into the book. But when reading this, it still very much felt like a textbook. I don't want to read that. A textbook with mediocre writing, and it felt like an ad for her church. Like, I definitely felt like I was more so reading an advertisement for her church than her personal life and how the church affects that, which is how she advertised this. And not only that, but the ghostwriter didn't even attempt to make this sound like Ginger. Like, I've seen, you know, I used to watch 19 Kids and Counting growing up before I realized they were fucked up. I've seen interviews with Ginger, and not just from the past, even interviews regarding this book. I've seen those interviews. I see how she talks in her YouTube videos and how she talks on Instagram, and it's like, that Ginger is not the Ginger I'm reading in this book. And a ghostwriter's job is to make a book sound like it's still coming from that person. And I don't think he achieved that at all. So yeah, I can actually go on and on about this book. I tried to summarize my thoughts the best I could. If you watch my bookish wrap-up from whatever month I read this in, it's like 10-15 minutes long of me just angrily ranting about it. But it is the absolute worst book I read in 2023 because of its messaging, how hypocritical I found it all to be, and somewhat dangerous. And just the fact that this book made me the angriest out of every book I read last year. And even, like, it made me angrier than the books that were there to purposely make you angry, which I think says a lot. So fuck this book, fuck this crock of shit. I never want to see this book again. And there you have it. Those are my worst books of 2023. I never want to look at them again. I don't recommend these books at all. Let me know your thoughts down below if you've read them. Let me know what your worst book of 2023 is, because I think it's tea. I love a good gossip sesh. If you like this video, give it a big thumbs up, comment, subscribe. Y'all know the drill. Without further ado, I'm gonna peace out and I'll see you guys later. Ciao tutti.